What's going on, FPL managers? Welcome to a new video from Fantasy Football Scout. We're off the back of Gameweek 12, and it was a pretty high-scoring one, wasn't it? And I'm here with FPL Sonaldo, otherwise known as Andy. I'm joined by 813-point manager and a really good rank. How are you doing, buddy?
Very good, very good. Ted, first, thank you very much for having me on. Big fan of your charts and graphs and your eloquent speaking. So big fan of you, first of all, and appreciate the bold introduction there because it seems like it's going to be downhill from here on out, but had a very good week, to say the least.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you on, buddy. And I always have to try and get someone on who's got a better rank than me. So, But as Az said on Breakfast Club, it's not that hard to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for your kind words. I don't think I consider myself that eloquent, but more as a bumbling mess. But there we go. But yeah, I mean, Game Week 12 was fun, right? I mean, obviously you got a good score. We'll go through your team pretty shortly. And we've got a lot of discussion about a certain Mr. Son and Harry Kane. We were watching Spurs yesterday. And I love that you've got the Son shirt, your namesake, in the background. We're definitely going to talk about those guys, whether to keep them going forwards. Obviously, they've got some good fixtures, so that might be pretty self-evident. But Spurs didn't look that great, did they? It was a bit of a mess, but hopefully they improve, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot to say on Spurs. When you told me before this recording or, this live session that we were going to speak on Spurs, I tried to put everything together, but just so many things. So hopefully I can kind of summarize my thoughts, but quite disappointing and a tale of two halves pretty much. So hope, let's get into it later.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a classic tale of form versus fixtures, I think. The eye test wasn't particularly promising. But the rest of the schedule for the video, we'll look at the key fixtures for all teams in the next 6 matches. We'll look at premium options about whether Salah's still the one to have and whether we need anyone else for the near future. We'll look at wingbacks in particular and how much value they're providing compared to maybe some other positions. We'll look at forwards, seeing maybe where any sort of budget forwards can now provide some value instead of maybe the likes of Tony or Antonio, which are pretty prevalent in our sides. And we'll finish off by looking at the shot map, average shot distance, all that sort of stuff. Which might give us some insight as to some players that might be flying under the radar. But in the meantime, let's have a look at how Andy got on in Game Week 12. Oh, what a score that is. 88 points and a big green arrow, right, Andy?
A big green arrow. I went from, I think, 119K all the way to 58K. So,
Nice.
Just goes to show that 1 week at a time and you can chip away. And I had a session with Prost last week, a video session, and he said something very insightful where, for managers, over 100K and under 500K, he's not too worried. As long as you can get to that 3, 4, 500K mark by mid-season of FPL, he thinks that anyone can get into the 100K at least and possibly the top 10K if some luck follows you. So, for those managers that might be lower in the ranks, I certainly advocate to continue grinding out results week in, week out.
100%. I don't think I've ever been this high at this point of the season. It's really nice to have this foundation to build upon. And we're only a third of the way through. 2/3 left to affect that rank. And I think both of us should be really, really pushing for that top 10K at least. And sure. It's super competitive at the moment, of course. But I've definitely given you a bit of a boost to your rank, by the way. I think it might be what's the word? A spell error or something.
Okay.
But I put you down as 51,000 just to give you a boost. I think that might
nice.
Be your rank before auto sub. So
yeah, pre-sub. Yeah.
We'll take it though. You'll take it.
I'll take it any day.
Nice one. We'll talk us through your team. And what have you got 2 free transfers this week?
I do. I didn't use a transfer last week, and so I have 2 free transfers, but I'm really lost. I really like the setup of my team. I got a lot of slack on Twitter when I revealed my team before the deadline because everyone's saying, "Oh, Sonaldo doesn't have Son," and maybe I can clarify it here. I did have Son in my wild card in 8, and then he had that COVID scare, so I kind of, moved away from him. And sometimes it's just naturally, sequence of events led to me having Kane, without getting into too much details. But I think it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise because I was more focused on getting guys like James, Chilwell, and Trent and Cancelo, and really investing in the wing backs, as we will speak on, and an opportunity to hop on Jota and Foden as well. So a lot of luck has been involved, but also some 50-50 decisions that went the right way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, getting on those wing backs early on has really been really useful to you. And now I think everyone wants as many wing backs in their team as possible. So a 4-4-2 formation, which I normally hate, is becoming sort of like the thing to have. And I guess it's like these wing backs, we can't really perceive them as defenders. We sort of have, they're like midfielders with, or even strikers really nowadays, with some defensive clean sheet potential. So massive readjustment of perception needed, I think. And the fact that you have all 4 of the key options in your team already, really strong position. I love that you played Foster, by the way, with that cheeky assist at the end. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Like, obviously very lucky with the assist, right? But I was a little like maybe getting greedy because I felt like he could have come away with a clean sheet watching that game. But the Foster call, like, I thought, it was a minimal, maybe a 1.2 point difference, right? And I just thought, like, I have 3 Liverpool players. I want them all to do well. I don't want to hedge my bet here. And it was a tough decision, but I'm kind of proud of it because 2 weeks ago, I started Foster over Ramsdale when he had that, double-digit haul. So sometimes those past biases like linger in your head, right? So I'm kind of happy I decided not to let that affect me, and it worked out this time. But moving forward, I'm very happy having Ramsdale on my team.
Credit to you. I was going to bring up the point where we all played Foster ahead of Ramsdale and Ramsdale completely punished us. So, I mean, complete credit to you for actually, going against the grain and playing Foster, because, I mean, Man United, they could have got a few goals and they might have on another day.
Exactly.
But yeah, you just got to take your luck when it comes. I mean, a Foster assist, so you obviously never imagine that in your wildest dreams, but these are the things that make your season. This is the reason why we enjoy FPL, for these sorts of moments. So I think I'm really jealous of your team, to be honest. We don't have 2 dissimilar teams, it has to be said, but I kind of want to move to 4 at the back with this 4. And I think, judging by the Spurs game yesterday, I think Kane owners are probably a little bit more happy than Son owners right now. We'll talk about Spurs. We'll keep pushing, we're procrastinating and talking about Spurs until we actually don't talk about them. But yeah, I think you're in a really good position, and I suppose it's like a blessing. Well, it's like a blessing in disguise, isn't it? Not knowing what to do with 2 free transfers because your team's so good.
No, Ted, this is the first time I think ever where I'm in a position where I literally think I'm going to burn the transfer. And there's like this bias about like having 2 free transfers. You should never burn it because every transfer is valuable. But I'm learning to be more patient this year, and I just feel like I don't see an exact move to make right now. So I'm going to let the Champions League games play out and kind of decide probably towards the end of the week.
Oh my God, the prospect of burning a transfer, that makes me squirm, writhe in horror. I think you could probably do something if you get to the point where you're like, I'm not going to do anything this week. Surely you can do something like move Brownhill to Norman at Norwich, who's actually a little bit more exciting than Brownhill, or Gilmore even, who knows. I mean, it's like the most dullard transfer ever, but if you're going to burn it anyway, you might as well do it.
You got to thumbnail this moment and then put it in the description, because TED Talks FPL just convinced me to make a Brownhill transfer. So hopefully it pays off if I actually end up doing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can come back to me when Norman magically comes off your bench for like 13 points as third sub. That would be incredible. I think personally, probably the weak link in your side is in Burmo.
Yes.
I mean, probably the Brentford boys just in general. I'm kind of like looking to get rid of Tony at some point.
Hmm.
But if you maybe had one transfer to make, maybe it would be in Burmo. But how would you get someone you liked without making another transfer? So that's another dilemma that you'll have. But
If I can quickly speak on that, Ted,
of course, yeah.
it's a great point you brought up because that was my 100% transfer this week, and I was, thinking of doing Mbumo to Gallagher, and I had that in mind, and I have zero point 0.4 in the bank, so it was a perfect transfer. And I remember just waking up on Sunday and seeing the price change, and now I'm priced out of it. So,
Ah,
so it's tough. Now I don't know what to do, pretty much.
that's super annoying because I think the
Mm-hmm.
move to Gallagher probably does make sense with Palace's fixtures being all right
Mm-hmm.
at the moment. So yeah, that's annoying for you. And if the rest of your team is so good, then it's difficult to change it without accommodating a move from Mbuemo. So that's an interesting one. Right, let's move on to my team. A paltry 83 points, which is not. I was pretty happy with that until I saw your score. But
Hey, that's a beautiful score.
another, I had a big green arrow as well. Went up from 125k to just under 80k. Which is obviously fantastic. And I guess the difference between our score was mainly that you played Foster and you had Chilwell's points instead of my Jimenez points. And I count myself pretty lucky to get those Jimenez points because Jimenez just sort of doesn't do anything in the game and then suddenly gets one chance and he's so good. I mean, did you see the finish? It was so clinical.
Marvelous finish. Yeah.
Great finish. He's one of those players that his stats aren't particularly good at the moment, but obviously we're going to keep because he has Norwich and Burnley next. But then after that, I think he's probably on the chopping block because I think Wolves fixtures get pretty difficult after that. So definitely got to keep my eye on some forwards, and whether a move away from 3 forwards is the way to go. I think it probably is. Maybe a move to Chilwell at the back would be my first choice. But I've got to try and figure out what to do though. I have 2 free transfers, so I can facilitate that move. The problem is, it probably means getting rid of Antonio, and which isn't the worst thing. I mean, he's got City and Chelsea in the next 3, and but the problem is, I probably should have got rid of Antonio like 3 weeks ago when everyone else sort of did. Well, presumably you did as well.
Yeah, I need to give credit where credit's due because I know your guest last week was Late Riser, and Late Riser has a lot of. I love the guy, right? It has a lot of influence in my, FPL, I guess, life, and yeah, I saw him make the move, and I thought if a top manager like himself is doing that, there's got to be a reason, and I think I got very lucky with it because remember, I think it was game week 9 or 10, he kind of passes to assist 2 times in a row, I think. So Antonio could have hauled that game, and I feel like I've been very lucky to get away with it. But in your situation, it's a tough call. Like, there's 3 game weeks before his fixtures get good. I know that some people are saying to hop off him and get, it's okay to wait till game week 18 as well, if that's an option. But yeah, I think it's a very tricky situation with the Antonio.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the couple of options that I have available to me are things like Antonio down to like a Josh King and Ben White up to Chilwell. I'm 0.1 off getting Benteke. So Kev Saunders in the chat asking about Benteke. Yeah, although I just can't bring myself to bring in Benteke into my team. It's just ridiculous.
Why not? I love Benteke.
Yes, he's great. Is he? Yeah. The perception about Benteke is that he just can't string a few games together while he's scoring regularly, and obviously he scored 2 at the weekend, but which is fantastic. And he is in a little bit of form, and Palace are free flowing, so he isn't necessarily the worst option ever. And I mean, the forwards aren't exactly setting the world light either, so I kind of have to consider him. But maybe Josh King as well, because the move from Antonio to effectively Chilwell in the starting 11 means that Ben White on my bench becomes, I don't know, like Josh King or something. So I'm going to bench him anyway. And Watford's fixtures are poor. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if I just ended up benching like someone like Josh King. Those moves don't fill me with a huge amount of satisfaction though, and I think getting Chilwell was the priority probably, but again with you, it's quite difficult to facilitate the right move because it doesn't feel quite right. So I'm going to have a long think about it.
What I will say, Ted, is looking at your team, I don't think you need to stress too much about these moves because your overall structure is so good. I like the idea of getting Chilwell. I would hop on him ASAP. But once you get that, you've got all the template players. You've got such strong wingbacks and essential players here and there. Not essential, but very important players here and there. That a guy like King or Benteke can be the differential. So.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout at all. And, if he's going to spend half the time on the bench, then it doesn't really matter. But I completely get that. That's it's an interesting point, actually. Our template ratings for both of our teams are around 85%. And that is extremely template. So there's a massive myth in the community that you don't get big green arrows if you have a template team. And the last few weeks have definitely disproved that. I mean, everyone practically has the same defence. Alexander-Arnold, James or Chilwell, Cancelo. They've all done well. And the template has, really boosted everyone's ranks. But that's because the template is just a selection of highly owned players. That combination thing is the massive booster. And, it's
no, Ted, exactly, because that's a great point you made. We have great template, very high template rating, which... And it got us good points. But I know some guys with the similar template rating that had big red arrows as well. So you're right. Template is template, but you also have to have the right combination of players, as you just spoken about.
Yeah, 100%. It's because I guess the way that they rate it is that it's like there's a group of players that are on like the highest owned, but there's going to be plenty more under the top 11 that also conform to like a sub template, and that template rating is going to be calculated on like a massive group of players. And as you say, someone could have a reasonably high template rating and have a completely different squad to you. Well, not completely different, maybe 5 or 6 players different. So I just wouldn't worry about that sort of thing and just make the moves, make the sensible moves. Don't be off put by the fact that everyone's going to be jumping on double Chelsea wingbacks. If it makes sense, just do it, because you're not competing against, you are competing against other people, but at the same time, if you do sensible moves, you can let other people make the mistakes around you, because not everyone is going to do the same thing. So I think having a template team is not the worst thing, basically, is the conclusion.
No, absolutely. And the entire season too, not just right now. Seems like the template was working early in the season, and a lot of people had high ranks. So, yeah,
100%. Right, we'll talk about maybe some of our moves at the end of it. But we'll look at our bus teams for Gameweek 13 at the end of the video, and maybe after we've been through a few stats, maybe we'll get some inclinations about what we want to do, because I certainly get a bit of inspiration by looking through some of the stats. But we'll start off with the fixtures for the next 6 game weeks. So we've got Man City there at the top, which is pretty encouraging. Nice. It's always nice to see a team that's fairly well owned at the top. But obviously they're starting off with a fairly tough fixture in West Ham. But after that, things get pretty rosy for the citizens. And we both own Cancelo and Foden. Is there anyone else from that team that really catches your eye? Or are those the two to own?
Yeah, I actually put out a tweet 2 weeks ago because I noticed something. Who did they play before this weekend? I can't remember exactly.
God, I'm awful at remembering these things. I'll check for you.
Yeah, while you check. So in that game, what I noticed was Foden played wide on the left, and KDB and Gundogan kind of, both started in the middle, playing kind of a double false nine, to say, if I want to, kind of describe it. And I'd see KDB make the runs at times, and Gundogan come deeper, and both make the runs, and if they get countered, one of them come back, and so what I saw was Gundogan as an option emerging possibly, and it's a sideways move to go from Foden to Gundogan, and I'm definitely not going to do that. And but for guys who don't have Foden and maybe they don't have enough money to get to Foden, maybe Gundogan's a good option. I really like the positions he was in, and I saw the same exact game plan both games. Foden played wide again this weekend, and I know a lot of people are high up on Bernardo Silva as well, who's basically started, I think, the last 6-7 game weeks in a row, and he's looking like he's a 90-minute player for Man City. And anytime you get a 90-minute player for Man City, you have to look. So because we have Foden, it's tough to say whether we should get another one, because there's obviously that rotation risk, Champions League coming up, and now we're in the fixture crunch where they're going to be playing so many games. So I don't think I'm going to go for a third City. However, Gundogan and Bernardo Silva both interest me a lot.
Yeah, definitely ones to consider. I agree with you regarding Gundogan. His stats are fairly good at the moment, and it's those late runs into the box. He's just always there when there's a tap in available. So, and he did this all last season as well, where he was just excellent value. So, I mean, even at whatever he is, like 7.5 million, he could provide some value there. Just to touch on Foden. Sorry, the fixture that you alluded to earlier was Man United before,
right.
and yeah, I mean, we should remember that, right? But I mean, there's so much to consider in FPL, just forget it. What I would say is I wonder whether Foden's been playing on that left in maybe perceived tougher fixtures, so Man United and Everton, because I think he's fairly versatile to play as that false nine as well, and maybe Pep warrants to play him as that false nine in maybe easier games. But I think that rotation, that merry-go-round in the City starting 11, if he's versatile enough to play in a couple different positions, then maybe that has given us evidence that he can play 90 minutes every game in that team, like Cancelo's been doing. And at the end of the day, regardless of the position that he plays, if he plays, every single game, if he starts every single game, I think that's just enough to warrant owning him. Because in the last couple of games, we have sort of seen him struggle a little bit to get as many chances as before. He did obviously miss that chance right at the end against Man United, which was annoying for us.
Hit
owners.
The post, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just one of those things. He could have taken it on another day. But I think from Gameweek 14, where City's fixtures get really good, there's no reason to get rid of Foden. I wouldn't start worrying. From my perspective, yeah, Foden and Cancelo seem the ones, and hopefully Foden is utilising that false nine occasionally as well. So yeah, fingers crossed. So moving on to a couple of the other fixtures here, got Burnley, Palace next. No one really interests me from Burnley. Palace, and there's Gallagher and Benteke that we've been talking about. Maybe some other players from Palace. I mean, they've been free flowing. Does anyone interest you from those two teams?
I watched the extended highlights for this game week for Burnley, and I thought Cornet looked pretty decent. Obviously, I didn't watch the full 90 minutes, so I need a more detailed breakdown. But I thought Cornet looked dangerous. He had a very nice finish, and he's been talked about for a while, right? He's been finding form for the last 4 or 5 game weeks. So, with your fixture ticker here, it looks like he's got pretty decent fixtures coming up. Maybe after the Tottenham game, he might be an option. So again, with these like mid-table teams, my confidence isn't too high. So I don't think I'll go there, but he's an option to consider for some.
For sure. Cornet he looks lively, but maybe that liveliness is all it might be, although he has been fairly good at finishing. But Burnley as a team, they just don't tend to be reliably, consistently attacking. So it's one of those. I think maybe someone like Gallagher might be a better option in a free-flowing Palace side, which probably looks better on paper. So yeah, we'll come back to those later on when we talk about some of the strikers. But then Leicester and Liverpool underneath. Jamie Vardy owners might be who have sold. I know Zofar, we had him on Deadline Stream, he kept Vardy, benched him, and now he's got this run of fixtures where Watford at home seems like a good one. Southampton and Villa, maybe slightly harder, and then Newcastle. So I'm not sure what I would do as a Vardy owner if you've kept him. I mean, it seems like the fixtures are too good now to get rid of him, but I mean, maybe a move to Kane is a better option. I'm not really sure. What would you do if you owned Vardy?
I think it's actually a fairly simple solution here, right? Because the thing about Vardy. Okay, so if you have Vardy in your team, first kind of look at if you have any burning holes that you need to have a solution for, right? And with Vardy and this fixture run coming up, unless you really have no other moves to make and you're willing to make the move, sure. But here's the caveat to that is, where would you go? I mean, like, is there another premium that you really want right now? Like, do you really want Kane? I don't think so, So I just think that I think it's just, you just got to play the fixtures. You've stuck with him till now. I know he's a frustrating own and he's a premium, but what other premium are you going to go to? Maybe if you can downgrade him and move somewhere else to get a Foden, to get a Jota, or to get one of the Chilwell or Reece James or one of the wingback boys, then you can downgrade. But if not, there's no other premium to go to. So just keep him and kind of go through the fixtures,
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I mean, Vardy's been frustrating own. Kane presumably has been frustrating own. But they both have excellent fixtures. So which one do you do? I wouldn't be like to be in that position because
yeah, me too.
I feel like holding Spurs is fine, but would I be bringing them in on the back of that Leeds game? I'm not 100%, but their fixtures are very, very good. So I mean, I might be inclined, but I don't know. I'll just leave it up to the people that are in those positions.
Yeah.
So yeah, after Leicester, we've got Liverpool. Always nice to see those with good fixture. I think plenty of us either a double or treble up with Trent, Salah and Jota seems like good value at the moment, especially with Firmino's injury. There was talk that Firmino would be back sooner than mid-December, which is not that great for Jota owners. But I think, with the prospects of Salah and Mane going away in January for the African Cup of Nations, Jota's going to be a pretty decent asset. So I think I'm not looking to get rid of Jota anytime soon. And especially off his amazing goal at the weekend.
Should have had two.
Always want more. Love it.
Yeah.
And then Arsenal, I mean, they're pretty uninspiring apart from the inspirational goalkeeper, Ramsdale, which I mean, he's just on fire at the moment, isn't he? Pity he couldn't keep a clean sheet. And, well, I mean, obviously we weren't expecting a clean sheet against Liverpool, but I think it's pretty encouraging for future games that Ramsdale seems to be in pretty good form, right?
Ted, in the UK, is there a general consensus that he should be England's number one?
Ah, God.
Or is that too polarizing of a question?
I mean, we have a lot of goalkeeping talent. We have, when Pickford was keeping his spot as number one, I mean, it was arguable that back in the day it was Nick Pope who was pressing, and then I think there was like Butland who was also pressing, and then there's a cycle of goalkeepers that keep impressing, and Southgate just continues to pick Pickford, which is fine. I mean, Pickford has a unique set of attributes. His agility is just insane. But he just always has that mistake. So I don't know. I think there's plenty of other decent goalkeeping options that Southgate could choose. But whether it's Ramsdale or another goalkeeper like Nick Pope or whoever, personally, I think there would be improvements over Pickford. But I mean, I think it's horses for courses, really. But it's a good question. There's no right or wrong answer to it. It's just an opinion. So yeah, under Arsenal, we've got Brentford, and they have a couple of tricky fixtures. So Tony and Mboma owners, Everton and Spurs. I mean, you could class them as tricky, but they have been a little bit leaky, especially Everton recently. So maybe keeping for Everton might not be the worst idea. But what do you think of Tony? When watching him, he got his goal at the weekend, but I thought he was a little bit lucky to get that goal. I think the goalkeeper should have done better. But I didn't watch the full game, so I couldn't tell you whether he was everywhere, feeding everyone left, right, and centre, getting loads and loads of chances. But from my perception was that he got a bit lucky, and I kind of want to get rid.
So I actually watched this game, and look, I think when it comes to the Brentford double up, no more. It's time to go. I've had enough. When Mbumo hit the post again, I just like I can't take it anymore. I think Tony's a keep. I saw signs of him um, really, really pretty decent this game. And before this game, I actually was wondering if I should bench one of them, and I ended up playing both. But there's a guy on Twitter called FPL Lens, Gabe, and I really value his opinion a lot. And I was talking to him prior to this game, and he was predicting a formation change and said that Tony's going to play a little further up the pitch, and it came true. And I thought Tony looked really good. I thought he looked light on his feet, a little bit more confident. I know he's frustrating own, but again, where are you going to go, right? So if you have Mbumo, I get it. I'm going to try to sell him as well, but maybe keep Tony for one more game week against Everton. Why not?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, it's good. I think we're going to have a good discussion on forwards because we've got a chart later on that just basically amalgamates all of the information, and I think it demonstrates quite a lot of nice things. But let's move on to the second part of the fixtures, and we've got Brighton down to Southampton. Brighton, I think Trossard seems to be the pick. Lamptey looks lively again. Not 100% sure whether he's FPL worthy yet, especially with the massive amount of money that we seem to be having in our back lines. I'm not sure there's much space for him instead of maybe the likes of Livramento. But potentially when Brighton's fixtures get good again, he could be a Livramento alternative. And Chelsea, we know about Chelsea. We'll talk about their fullbacks later on. Norwich, I mean, anyone on Pookie must be happy in the last couple of games. Does he interest you as an alternative to some of the forward options?
I think he's interesting. Sometimes you have to kind of separate the FPL to the football. And when it comes to these strikers, a couple of weeks ago, I'll say this. A couple of weeks ago, we kind of didn't know about these wingbacks becoming these legitimate options now. But some people, and I'll raise my hand as well, predicted that these guys would become serious options. And this is this kind of same situation right now. We're trying to predict who's going to be the emerging option in front of the front line. And I don't think I'd go to Pookie, but Pookie had made some very good movements. I was watching him kind of when Max Aarons had the ball, and when Norman was taking a shot, the types of movements that Pookie was making was pretty convincing. So I thought it was a pretty decent game. But again, do you want a Norwich player? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I spend far too much of my time talking about Norwich these days. Terrible. But I think Dean Smith coming in, they're getting a really big result against Southampton. Will give them a bit of encouragement, and hopefully he can bring Campbell back to his former self. I mean, adding in the likes of Billy Gilmore to that side makes it super dynamic. So I think there's possibilities for Norwich to get a bit of a run of form, and I think Pookie could benefit from that. But the next two fixtures, Wolves and Newcastle, and then it gets sort of middling. I'm not like madly keen on bringing him in immediately. I think if you've owned him already, then you've done well for the prospects of the next two games. But yeah, if you want to punt for the next two games, then why not? Go give him a go. Man United next. A lot of talking points about Man United because obviously Ollie's been sacked, and I think that's if they manage to sign someone fairly quickly, or if it's going to be Carrick as the caretaker manager for the remainder of the season, those two outcomes will play a massive difference. Because I think if a new manager comes in, they're going to get a bit of more of a boost, especially when their good fixtures come through. But I mean, at right now, the prospects of bringing in Ronaldo or Bruno Fernandes, it's just not that appealing, and their stats haven't been great. So whether we just wipe the slate clean and just ignore all of the previous numbers and say, yeah, Ronaldo maybe from game week 15 is a consideration. I think Kane owners, you've got a good way to get Ronaldo if you think that's a good move. But I don't think Man United assets are an immediate go get them right now sort of thing. I think we can wait a couple of games, especially with Chelsea and Arsenal up next. Is that sort of echo your thoughts on Man United?
Yeah, I won't speak too much on it, but I completely agree with you. First of all, a lot of people are speaking on United, and obviously United fans have the right to do so because they were awful this game, but also give credit where credit's due because Watford were brilliant. They came out with so much energy and passion, and it was cool to watch them just kind of come together. Almost relegation, right? So good on Watford there. Yes, I would not go near United assets right now, but you know what? Like Ronaldo got his chances. Like he had a couple chances in the second half. He's always dangerous, and I'm certainly not closing the door on a move to Ronaldo. If we've got 3 game weeks for the next before the fixture run, so we'll see. Maybe this new manager bounce makes an effect. Whether they get a new manager, who knows? But definitely just keep it open.
I think the Chelsea game will be a really good audition for the new Man United that we might see, because if they get completely closed out by Chelsea, we'll know that they're just a rung below the top teams now. And Ronaldo got some chances against Watford, but it was Watford, so they're not the strongest defensively. But I mean, he didn't get too many chances. I mean, he created a few, but it wasn't that great. So I mean, if he has a really good game against Chelsea, then suddenly that sets everyone's mind racing. Oh, they've got a good run of fixtures coming up. That puts Ronaldo in our thoughts. So definitely worth seeing the Chelsea game first, and then seeing what kind of Man United team we have going forwards.
Yeah. Ted, quickly, I do want to say this about Shaw, because remember in the beginning of the season, we all had him in our template game week 1, and we were ignoring the likes of Diaz and Cancelo and City defense because their fixtures were worse. But I think we're in a very similar situation here where United's fixtures look great, but we have 4 amazing defensive options that are fixture proof essentially. So there's no way to go to a United defender, even with the fixture swings, unless we see a drop in form or rotation in the 4 wingbacks that we all agree are essential going forward.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Luke Shaw as a left back was fairly good, obviously during the summer at the end of last season as well. But if you compare to the likes of Chilwell, James, Alexander-Arnold and Cancelo, they just play in a completely different way. I mean, Shaw is a relative defender to those sort of midfielders and strikers. They're sort of makeshift, ultra-attacking defenders. So yeah, there's no way that Luke Shaw is in my thoughts at all, even with the good fixtures. So yeah, completely agree with you there. So next up we've got Spurs. The next 3 games looks particularly good for Spurs, which is why I think most of us who have brought in Spurs assets will probably keep. This probably could be a good time to talk about Spurs. I'll start with my perceptions. Basically, Conte's formation, it lined up on Sky Sports as a 3-4-3. And I thought Son was playing on the left. And when I look at average positions from the match, Son was definitely the highest, the furthest forward player. But I think those average shot positions can be a little bit misleading because they also take into account when the other team have possession. And if Son is still the highest player forward, it means that he's just not tracking back and doing his defensive duties, whereas the likes of Kane is more likely to do that. I don't think Son was particularly playing high during that game. I think Kane was everywhere, and I don't think Son was on the last shoulder either. He was sort of sitting in quite narrowly in this sort of number 10 role, and I don't think that suits him. I think he likes a little bit of space to run into, and a couple of occasions during that game he did have it. But as a Son owner, I was very frustrated. Were you more happy as a Kane owner?
No, I'm never happy when Son isn't getting goals or chances, regardless of FPL, because for me, football comes first. And being the biggest Son fan, I always want him to do well. Even if his EO was 200%, I would want him to score. Really, I really mean that. So I'm very worried for Son. I think that if you're a Son owner, you should be worried because we've seen 3 games, and the same 3 games I've seen emerging patterns. And you're right, they played with a 3-4-3, and this is not working for them. Unless Conte decides to switch up the formation to a 3-4-1-2 or 3-5-2, it'd be amazing. But they can't do that till the January transfer window because Conte doesn't see Lo Celso, Dele Alli, and and Dombele as midfielders. I mean, every single time they come on for Lucas or, even Son in the first two games. And the reason being is they're not like a Barella or Arturo Vidal type of defender or midfielder who's energetic, running box to box, getting past their first man, making, really nice passes. And it's interesting because Conte is implementing this 3-4-3 in the Premier League. We saw this in Chelsea, but you have to remember Willian and Hazard are very different types of players to Son and Lucas. Son and Lucas, to be honest, are not very good at coming back, receiving the ball, and building up. They're best at the runs, and if anything, Kane's the only creator in this front line. Kane's the one that should be coming deep to get the ball, and we saw parts of that. I'm getting very passionate here, but when I saw Winks and Højbjerg start in that holding line, I already knew this was going to be bad news because their passing is not good enough to move the ball forward, and Conte is all about building up. In the first half, we saw Leeds press, and the key here was Phillips played with the defensive line. He would drop deep. So I think that was a key. And as you know, Leeds are very high tempo, high pressing, and ball possession 60-40 Leeds in the first half, and their pass success rate for Spurs was 79%. So 40% ball possession with under 80% pass rate is a terrible sign, which led to 0 shots on target. But here's where Conte is kind of the masterful tactician that he is, because I think that what happened was he might have done this on purpose to kind of tire out the Leeds players. And we've seen this throughout the entire season where Leeds players get very exhausted throughout the second half. And in the second half, Phillips moved up to the pitch and the defensive line got weaker, and Son and Lucas tried to make some runs, and they had, I think, 11 shots and 4 big chances with 83% pass rate and 50-50 in terms of ball possession. So the second half was more like it. But moving forward, to summarize, I'm very worried. I think this Europa League game this midweek, people with Son and Kane, especially Son, should be looking at this game, or at least the highlights, to see if he makes a formation change. If he doesn't, I'm not very confident in my boy moving forward, because he needs to be playing up top and he needs to be playing as high as possible. And the ball, and you're right, the heat map showed them coming super deep to receive the ball, and he was lost at times. He didn't know what to do, So
I really loved that summary from you. I think it's spot on. And as a Son owner myself, I am definitely worried. He looked like he played the ball and then just he just walked. He didn't run, and he ended up in midfield most of the time. And a couple of times, he got the ball and made a really decent run forward, like bursting past defenders. And I thought he looked super effective doing that. But yeah, we definitely have to monitor how Conte adapts this strategy, this structure to make Son his back to his best. And I just really didn't see that at all. So as you say, keep an eye on the Europa stuff midweek, because if there's any glimmers of light in this tunnel, I think it might come there. But yeah, I'm not particularly happy owning Son at the moment. I think Kane owners probably have it a little better.
Yeah, and Ted, one more thing is that, did you notice how kind of selfish the Spurs players looked a bit? I felt like they were not making the fast tempo passes, the give and goes. I feel like everybody was holding the ball just a bit too long. And in the second half, or maybe first or second half, especially second half, I saw maybe 6 opportunities that could have become small or big chances if the ball had been played a half tempo faster. So that's worrying too. There's no chemistry right now with the team. So
100%. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it was selfishness. I think it was lack of creativity. They found themselves in positions that they weren't used to being in. Lucas Moura lost the ball more times than I could count.
Exactly.
And it was just lack of clue. They didn't know what to do, where to thread the ball. And I think that comes through intuition. If you play in a system that you know, and obviously this might be playing a little bit harsh because Conte's only been the manager for a few games, so it might be a little bit harsh. But if you're playing in a system week in, week out, you start getting an idea about where players are going to be at certain points in the build-up. And that it just completely was not evident in that game. So exactly. A lot of improvement to do. And I wonder whether Lucas Moura keeps his place going forwards. I'm not 100% who he brings in instead, and whether that warrants a change in formation. But
by the way, Lucas Moura lost the ball 16 times in the first half. And
oh my God.
His pass percentage was 67%, which is really bad. So
it's poor.
I'm surprised he started all 3 games. He's a good player. He's got his moments, and he's obviously a legend in that Ajax game. But Lucas has been very frustrating, to be honest.
Okay, we've dwelt a little bit too much on Spurs, but it's been really good conversation about it, and I think it probably echoes people's own sentiments about how that game went and future projections for Spurs' performance. The problem is that we can't really get rid with Burnley, Brentford and Norwich up next. And I think if anyone has sort of got double Spurs, they've doubled up on Son and Kane, then moving one down to another player might not be the worst idea, or just going with it. Just see what happens, because things could change in the next game or two. Sure. Okay, well, let's leave Spurs behind for now. Aston Villa and Southampton, not particularly worried about talking them. Maybe Ollie Watkins could be an option going forwards. Just the final teams to finish off. We've got Watford. Josh King is on the radar for me, but the next 3 games for Watford are not great. So, as I said at the start of the video, if you're bringing in, maybe just it's worth benching as a 12th man. Everton, I'm not really considering them until Calvert-Lewin comes back into the fold. I think a top 2, maybe a 4-4-2 with a Calvert-Lewin and an Antonio is a long-term thing that I'm looking at. Leeds, until Bamford's back, I'm not particularly keen on bringing Rafinha back in. I already got rid of him, and got a bit lucky, I suppose, with him being ill. Obviously, commiserations to those that own Rafinha, and he would look like he was going to be back for that game, but his illness was just a bit unlucky for you guys. I think Rafinha is definitely a long-term hold if you've kept him. Still a lot of value there. Newcastle, I think Callum Wilson could be on the radar potentially. He was the biggest underperformer this week with an XG of 0.77. So there's some signs, there's glimmers that Eddie Howe might be knitting that team together in the way that he knitted Bournemouth, and I think that's definitely one to keep an eye on, especially when Newcastle play Norwich in game week 14. Last 2 teams, West Ham, we've got Antonio with 3 difficult fixtures in the next 3, and this is where I'm wavering about whether to sell him or not, because from game week 16 he has some good ones. So definitely a bit of an interesting whether to keep or sell Antonio. I think there's a lot of interest between likes of Bowen or Fornals in that West Ham team that could provide better value. And lastly, Wolves, you own Hwang. I've got Jimenez, very happy to own for Norwich and Burnley, but then after that their fixtures get pretty tough, I'd say. So sorry, a whistle stop tour. What's the saying? Yeah, whistle stop tour of the fixtures. But yeah, we've got lots more to talk about, so let's not dwell too much longer on the fixtures. We're gonna move on to talk about premium options now, and all of us have Salah, and that's pretty obvious. But is there? Excuse me. Are there other 8 million and over? Excuse me.
Take your time.
I'm gonna have some water.
Yeah. It's the Spurs talk that got to you.
Oh my God, it did. It properly got me. Stuck in my throat. Harry Son is in my throat as well as in my squad. Outrageous. Okay, sorry. The premium options. So we've got Salah at 13 million, but this is the chance diagram for the best attacking options over 8 million. And I know 8 million doesn't really mean premium, but we can have a track about Foden and the likes of those sorts of players. And like Foden particularly here is pretty prevalent across all different statistical measures. We've got the small chances created on the left, small chances, which are the shots, the difficult shots, the big chances, which are the easy shots, and then the big chances created on the right, which are the easy chances created. And I'll come to you in a minute, Andy, but I think obviously Salah looks really good, and that's fairly obvious. But Kane and Son don't look too bad in the statistical measures. But what was most evident for me was Fernandes has just completely lost all his shots. Where have his shots gone? He used to take pot shots from outside the box, and he used to be one of the highest shot makers in the league. But he's just not on any of these measures. That just really sort of is the last nail in the coffin for Fernandes for me, unless the new manager changes his style. What do you make of Fernandes as an option? Do you agree with it? He's dead, or can he be resurrected for game week 15?
I think he's dead because he's too expensive. What is he now? 12 something, right? I wouldn't go there. I mean, he's obviously a great player. And by the way, shout out to FPL Bruno, who's my partner in crime on Twitter. So he's probably hating this right now. But I don't know. I don't think he interests me right now. I think there's so much more value, and you could spread the funds elsewhere. So I wouldn't go near Fernandes for now.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And it's amazing how a player with such quality can just become like a poor FPL asset in the almost the blink of an eye. It's very, very strange. But I guess what I wanted to point out here is that Ronaldo, you know, he's got a lot of small chances, but they're small chances. They're difficult efforts. He's not in the big chance category at all.
I noticed that.
Which is just really bad. A couple of big chances created as well. But he's just sunk. His stats have sunk, and this just does not bode well for Man United going forward. But as I said earlier, we could just wipe the slate clean for Man United and just give them the benefit of the doubt, because this might spur them on. It's a big, big change. Ollie leaving, and it's going to be a seismic change at the club. So we will see what happens. But let's talk about Son and Kane, because, I mean, their numbers actually aren't bad. Kane is taking a lot of shots, small chances, 13. Only Salah has more. And Son's there with 8. And then Son has more big chances than Kane in the last 6. 4 for Son, 3 for Kane. And Son's there with the small chances created, 11. Only Fernandes and Antonio have more. And Kane is good for the big chances created. Obviously, Kane owners should be a little bit more happy about that prospect. But they certainly seem busy in the stats department. So I don't think anything's completely lost when it comes to Spurs. It's just the eye test tells a completely different story, sadly, doesn't it?
No, look, we were very negative I was very negative on that game summary, but it comes with the passion I have for Son. And I will say this: when you have a guy like Conte and you come off a victory like that with the passion and the energy that you saw from your coach at the end, those are the external factors that aren't measured on spreadsheets that definitely have lingering effects on the team. So I think that, as negative as I might have been on the summary of that game, look forward and it's just a click, they just maybe a formation change or 1 or 2 combination goals. Like both of them hit the post, by the way. So you just have to believe that you're here for the next 3-4 fixtures, and we're hoping for the best. And on the note of Kane, we expect so much from the premium, but for me, in the next 3 game weeks, if he has one double-digit haul, that's enough for me. I feel like that just justifies me bringing him in, and I think we'll forget about his 2-pointers if he can just get one double-digit return for me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I guess the reason why we're grouping this premium stuff up is because who else is there to go to as a premium option? Like Ronaldo potentially, but we talked about this earlier, that we're not going to be jumping on immediately because we don't know what sort of Man United we're going to get, and we've all invested quite heavily. We've almost preempted a Spurs boost in form because of the decent fixtures, and I think it probably does make sense to hold on to it while we can, because I moved to someone else. Like, I mean, De Bruyne has sort of got COVID at the moment. Fernandes is a sort of dead option. And we've got these random other options that just don't make sense as premium options. So we're caught between a rock and a hard place. The lack of options is pretty evident.
There is one though.
Ooh.
And I would definitely go to this guy if Jota wasn't around, and that is Mane.
Yeah.
I love Mane right now. He looks amazing. And He's always been out of our FPL picture and our teams, but if Jota wasn't around, regardless of AFCON, I would be all over him right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think
Mm.
he's I've got a graphic at the end, actually, the shot map that particularly bigs him up in terms of shots he's making at the moment. His conversion is really high, and
Mm.
it's going back to almost a couple of years ago where his conversion was one of the best in the entire league. So
Nice.
obviously really good for Mane owners, but it's such a weird prospect that almost a player becomes a non-option because you, on one hand, you have almost the best player in the world is a perma-captain option, and also an equivalent forward in Jota who's half the price.
Hmm.
Mane just becomes a non-option, which is
Non-option.
so
Mm.
strange.
Yeah.
But if Mane was playing for the likes of Chelsea or Man City or whoever,
Yeah.
he would be a real big contender right now for our sides, I have to say.
For sure.
So yes, I'm not really sure there's much else to say on this, but we've got Antonio, we've got Foden in here. I think Foden, like he's spread across all of the categories, as I said earlier, and I'm not getting rid of him at all. I think we talked about Man City earlier, and I think Foden is definitely a keep. But yeah, there's a smattering of other options, but I just think Salah and maybe a Spurs guy at the moment isn't the worst thing ever to have. Like, yeah, we're going, oh my god, I'm going to worry about Son and Kane at the moment, but who else is there to have? So very interesting. But let's move on to our next topic, and this is the main talking point for the video, and this is wingbacks. Get the chart up. This is defenders. These are the top defenders from attacking potential. For the last 6 game weeks, we've got small attempts, which is the difficult chances created, the difficult shots combined, and then the big attempts, which are the big versions of those. And you can just see there's a massive disparity between the main contenders that we are already talking about. We've got Trent as the best, arguably, for the amount of chances and shots that he has, and then Reece James and Chilwell are closely followed behind, and then Cancelo and Rudiger. I mean, Rudiger's there. I mean, it really surprised me when I made this chart that Rudiger could even provide some value in this. Obviously, he's not a wing back, so it kind of defeats the point of the theme of the video. But at 5.9, would you even contemplate going Rudiger over one of Reece James or Chilwell?
I think if you don't have Rudiger, no. But if you have Rudiger, you keep, because Rudiger is a great option. And there's this notion that he's a center back. And of course, he's not going to get those final third touches like Chilwell and Reece James. And Chilwell and Reece James are just so attacking. I don't really consider them defenders anymore, right? But for example, if you look at that heat map, the one that really stood out to me was the heat map against Norwich. He was playing like a left wing back role, basically. And I'm sure the heat map for this game week was pretty similar, but he's such a threat in the corner kicks and such a good player as well. So I don't think you need to make a move away from Rudiger to, let's say, a Chilwell or Reece James if you do have him, because I think he provides a lot of value. But with that being said, if you don't have one of the 4 in Trent, Reece, Chilwell, or Cancelo, you have to make that priority for me. I think this is the dream Avengers right now in terms of the wingbacks. And I know earlier, remember when we were talking about our teams, the first thing you said to me was, oh, you're playing a 4-4-2. And inside what I was thinking was, no, I'm not, Ted. I'm playing a 0-8-2 or 0-8. Yeah, exactly. 0-8-2, because they're not defenders to me. The clean sheet is a bonus, they're attackers pretty much. So
Oh, absolutely. And it's a massive perception thing, I think, for most of us that go, you played FPL for multiple years and you go, oh, never play a 4-4-2. But yeah, you're quite right. They're a different proposition this year. These specifically 4 players, excluding Rudiger. And just before we move on, because I'm going to move these guys onto a chart that compares them with forwards. But just before we do that, just wanted to just show the disparity between Reguilon and those 4. Obviously, we've got pre-Conte data in here, so that might have reduced Reguilon's appeal a little bit. But I think there is still a little bit of a disparity between Reguilon. So I think if you've got Alexander-Arnold, James and Cancelo like I do, I think I would prioritise Chilwell over Reguilon. 100%. But let's do that. Let's move on to the next one. And what I've done is I've just stuck those 4 or 5 top defender options on a forwards chart, and these are the best forwards in the game statistically. We've got Josh King up there, who's had a lack of matches. I think it's only 2 or 3 matches he's played, but obviously really good for big attempts, and he's obviously done well. But when you put the defenders on there, you've got Trent, Reece James, Chilwell, Cancelo, and Rudiger among the best forwards for attacking stats, and the fact that you've got clean sheet potential there too. It just screams to me that everyone needs to prioritise these guys, because they're providing way better value than the likes of Tony or even Antonio here. So I completely, this is definitely backing up what you're saying about, you're playing a 0-2-8 or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are just awesome. So
you see them as forwards. I said 0-8-2, but I guess 0-2-8 works as well.
Well, I mean, Chilwell seems like a striker at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, Cancelo and Chilwell are in the top, 20 players for number of shots in the last 6 game weeks. It just says it all. Everyone is floundering in terms of attacking potential, apart from these guys. And that's just so interesting. So I think I have to prioritise a Chilwell move this week.
Yeah, I have some stats real quick, Ted, to back it up. So I brought in James in game week 8. He's provided me 54 points, 10.8 points a week. Cancelo in game week 8, 35 points, 7 points a week. Trent game week 8, 44 points, 8.8 points per week. Of course, this is hindsight data, but still very a lot of value. And there was a tweet by Big Man Bakar today saying their goal involvement per 90, James and Trent 0.6, Chilwell 0.5, Cancelo 0.4, and they all play for the top 3 defensive teams in the league. And on FF Scout members area, final third touches in the last 4 game weeks, Trent 114, Cancelo 148, 7 penalty area touches, and finally James 159, 20 penalty area touches. Mind-boggling. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it just says it all, really. I mean, it's almost like a non-conversation because everyone seems to now have cottoned onto it, and it's just, this is the general priority that everyone should do, and I think that's just so evident. I mean, they're providing better attacking stats than Cristiano Ronaldo, for goodness sake. It's just ridiculous, and they've also got clean sheet potential. So yeah, we won't talk about those guys anymore, because I just think it's it's like flogging a dead horse. It's
common narrative now.
Yeah, 100%. Just want to caveat a few things on this. Firmino is there. Yes, he's played a few games. He's been injured since, and I think most of those stats have come from that Watford game where he got 20 points. So take that with a pinch of salt. Benteke is there, and that's super interesting. And I just can't believe I even can contemplate bringing Benteke into my side. I'm actually 0.1 away from doing Antonio to Benteke and Ben White up to Chilwell, which is so annoying because I would have maybe contemplated doing that.
Yeah.
How do I know that Palace are just going to continue being awesome and Benteke is going to continue to score? It just seems so counterintuitive. What are your thoughts on Benteke as a legitimate option?
I'm going to base it simply off this last game. Simply off this last game, he looks like a great option. So food for thought. That's all I'll say, because honestly, it's a coin toss, right? Like, you're right. But, sometimes you got to take this risk. And as I mentioned, Ted, like, you have such a strong team that I don't think it'll backfire at all. If anything, it'll benefit you. If not, there's no other options that's hurting you in the forward line. So I see the value here of moving to Benteke, especially with this fixture run.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's probably a blessing in disguise, to be honest, because he would be sitting on my bench as a 12th player. Well, I guess he would be that sort of 11th, 12th man, depending on fixtures and stuff. But yeah, I mean, Benteke seems like a legitimate option. I can't believe I'm saying that. But anyway, I mean, if I did that move, it'd probably have to be for Josh King, because he's a little bit cheaper. And I mean, King's stats are great. Whether we know, whether we're going to continue to caveat that his attacking numbers are just being adjusted by a small sample size, that sort of thing. But maybe Ranieri's, bringing the best out of him. Maybe he continues to do this and everyone sort of misses the boat on this 5.7, I think he is, forward. He could provide excellent value.
Yeah.
It's a pity Watford's fixtures are poor at the moment, I say. But
I think Joshua King is someone to consider from game week 16, though. I think he has some decent fixtures from there. So
yeah, 100%. I mean, when we've got a massive midfield with Foden and Jota and whoever, obviously
right.
Salah, and a massive premium back line as well, we're going to have to find some value up front, and maybe Josh King will provide that. Talking about Jimenez, I mean, Huang's not on here, but I mean, he's probably not far away from Jimenez on this chart in that bottom left corner. But Jimenez is kind of frustrating own. As I said, he's good for the big attempts, average for the big attempts, but not very good for number of shots, number of chances created. And I think that probably echoes the way that Wolves play. They're a very solid side, but they lack a lot of quantity in terms of the attacking numbers. But obviously Jimenez is such a good player, he can sort of get away with it and be clinical. As we sort of alluded to in the fixtures, next two are definitely a keep, and then after that I'll be definitely getting rid of with Jimenez. Let's talk about Callum Wilson, because he's had a couple of games, or 2 or 3 games under his belt now, and those attacking stats seem reasonable. What do you think about Callum Wilson as an option in that Newcastle team?
I think it's a bit too late. I think the boat was to get him last game week. So this game week I wouldn't get him. And I think he has 2 good fixtures after starting next game week, maybe 3. So after that, it's a sell, right? So that's pre-booking a transfer already. And, the goals are so spread out, right? I know Newcastle scored 3 and they're, a classic kind of mid-low table team that just attack, or sometimes defend, right? They don't really know how to control the game. So it's kind of a roll in the dice of how the team's going to perform. So when they do attack, you would want, and again, the narrative was Wilson is involved in every Newcastle goal, but we didn't see that at all this game. So I think I would not do it, to be honest, if I was in someone's shoe.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think definitely wait and see what kind of Newcastle we get, and maybe with a small run of fixtures we could jump on. But yeah, definitely not rushing to get him in. I think the main talking points here I want to just dwell 5 minutes on is Antonio and Tony, because they are busy. They're looking like they've got some attacking numbers, but the big attempts is something that really worries me. It's about half a big attempt per match, and that just screams to me that they're drifting off into wide areas, and they're not getting the easy opportunities that we need strikers to really flourish with. And I don't know about you, but when I was watching the West Ham match, Antonio really frustrates me by drifting out to the wing. And
yep.
I don't want him there. I want him in the box. Just stay there, and finally he can get some tap-ins like he used to do last season. I mean, he was terrible. He was renowned for missing shots like 4 yards away from goal. I want that sort of Antonio. I don't want someone who scores 30-yard screamers like he did for Jamaica. I want someone who gets in the box, and that's kind of frustrating me, and it's kind of pushing me towards getting rid for the next 3 games. And I don't know whether that's silly and naive, because we know what kind of player he is. We know he's in good shape, and if he stays injury-free, he's perceived as one of the best players in the league, as he evidenced at the start of the season. So what do you think about Antonio? And obviously you don't own him, but for people potentially looking to get rid, do you think it's a mistake?
I think the top managers in FPL will tell you to keep and just hold the value. You've already come this far, and his fixtures swing soon, right? But for me, it's easy for me to say since I sold him. I just like you said, he's been playing out of position a little bit, right? Antonio's weakness is exactly that, playing wide and trying to dribble and move the ball up the pitch. He's just kind of slow, right? Just very, he's not that great dribbling the ball up. So, so again, Bruno did a breakdown previous, I think 2-3 game weeks ago, where he told me that his zonal matchups are pretty good. So he has very good matchups in the last, I think, in the next couple game weeks. He's got pretty decent zonal matchups. So he's always there to score. There's always an opportunity to score. So again, look at your team. If there's someone you really want to go to, then make the move and don't look back, because it's just a 0.3 difference in the end that you have to pay for. So terrible answer there. Good
no,
luck.
I know. Oh, it's a really interesting one, because I guess the dilemma I have is, do I, in essence, it's do I have Chilwell or Antonio? And you can see them next to each other in this chart. They have similar attacking stats, but the problem is that Chilwell has clean sheet potential. I couldn't believe the stat that was on screen when I was watching the Chelsea match. Tuchel's 49 games for Chelsea, and 30 of them were clean sheets. That's an over 60% clean sheet conversion rate, when the average in general for the entire league is around 27% clean sheet conversion. It just shows how solid this Chelsea team are, and they'd be getting clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet. Chilwell,
Ted, I think. Go ahead.
No,
I think if you can fund a move to Chilwell through Antonio, you got to do it. I'm confident they keep a clean sheet against United this game week. Like, even if they don't and they come out with a 1-pointer, the next game week they're going to come out with a 9 or 10. So I just think it's just such a dangerous word, but obvious move to me. Again, if you can keep Antonio and create that move elsewhere, then probably that's the move, right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I can also sacrifice Tony. I just won't get a good forward. I'd get something like a 4.7 forward or something that would be bench fodder. And that's the issue. Like when we're going through Christmas, where there is a perceived threat of rotation, there's a common consensus that it's never as bad as it actually is. But you still want to have 2 or 3 playing assets on your bench, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And there is a risk at the moment that to get these big at the back players and maintain the decent players in the rest of our side, that we sacrifice some of our bench at Christmas, where rotation is potentially heavy. So that's the problem. Do I go Antonio for a playing player like King and have some money in the bank left over, or just go to like a 4.7 or something and have bench fodder, which is not appealing considering Douglas Luiz is also sitting on my bench and permanently injured. So it's like Livramento is the saviour on my bench, but I guarantee he's going to start conceding a few goals when Saints fixtures get a little bit worse. So definitely one to mull over. My perception is if you want to sell Antonio, like I'm kind of thinking about it, it wouldn't be the worst move ever. But and if you had to bring a West Ham player back in, you can start thinking about Bowen or Fornals as maybe some better value options. I don't think Antonio is a must hold right now. But maybe that's some recency bias and all that sort of stuff. But let's move on and talk about the last chart of the day before we look at our bus teams for next week. And this is the shots map. This is our average shot distance for the players who are shooting the most in the entire league. And so this is filtered on 13 shots minimum. So all of these players have 13 shots or more. And we've got obviously the players shooting closest to goals within 12 yards, and that's Benteke, Josh King, Watkins, Foden, Aubameyang. And before I got to Foden, it's the typical striker that sort of hangs by the penalty spot and shoots, and that makes a lot of sense. But I mean, Foden is shooting within 12 yards. I think it might have been even shorter than that. So that's a massive thing for me. If anyone's even thinking about selling Foden, just look at this and go, yeah, I want a bit of that. What I would say is the circles around the players just indicate that breakdown of the type of shots that they're having. Yellow is shots blocked, red is shots off target. I mean, we've got Benteke there with a massive proportion of shots off target. And in green, we've got yeah, no, that's kind of like, oh, yeah, my trepidation about bringing in Benteke is summarised in this one infographic. The green is the shots on target, and that little white section with the border is the number of goals that they've scored in, obviously, the shots on target. So you can look at their conversion rate while you do it. You've got Cancelo at the bottom there with 0 goals. He hasn't converted any yet, but you can see that he's shooting a lot. And I mean, it's amazing that Chilwell and Cancelo are on this chart being defenders in the top, 19 players in the game. So, I mean, just to echo the numerous times that we've said this stream that wingbacks are good value.
Yep.
I'm not sure you need too much more evidence. Does anyone stick out on that chart as someone that might be flying under the radar for you?
By the way, for the viewers, the reason I'm looking down is I'm looking at all the charts kind of through, my phone. So it's down here. Don't mean to be rude or anything, but Ted, this chart is really cool. I need to give you a shout out for this because really well made. And I hope did you post this on Twitter yet? Because I definitely want to have this in my FPL list, I guess.
I will do. Yeah, I will do.
Yeah, everybody definitely check this out later. I didn't analyze it enough to really just pick out anybody, but I like how Foden's in there because he's in my team, and it's always good when someone in your team's inside the 12-yard box. So nice to see that there. And I didn't realize Benteke was missing that many shots off target. So my thoughts have changed slightly, but
it's just what I love about stats is that you can paint a picture how you want to paint it, and you need to look at it at numerous angles for it to actually make sense. True. And looking at Benteke in that last chart, he looks like one of the best forward options. And I look at this, and obviously he's shooting lots, and he's close to goal. But you kind of know through previous experience that he does miss a lot, and that's particularly evident here. Although there's a lot of shots on target.
I will say the one that stands out a lot to me is Harry Kane. How far back he is for a premium striker. That's very worrying,
His conversion rate's poor as well. Look at that tiny little white.
Yep.
It's comparative to Ivan Toney and Adam Armstrong, Dan James, everyone around them in that vicinity. They really haven't been converting. And you're right, it is a little bit worrying when you see a player who's moving further and further back in that average shot position. Obviously, it's worth saying that this is a massive average of Kane's 16 shots. So at the weekend, we saw Kane shooting a few really close to goal, and that's going to bring that average forward. But so it's definitely not worth saying that, all of Kane's shots are outside the box or whatever. That's definitely not the case. But certainly when the proportion is outside the box, that's definitely something to think about. But yeah, Foden for me definitely is a keep. Chilwell in the next, shooting 12 to 14 yards out, unbelievable. And his conversion rate's pretty good.
Don't you feel, you don't have Chilwell, but I feel like I got robbed this week. He hit the post in the first, 5 minutes, and he was looking real dangerous. I think offside goal as well. So yeah,
100%. I mean, the fact that they had 2 disallowed goals where Chilwell got the assist for Pulisic and Reece James.
Yep.
What a goal that was. Just sadly, both of them offside. I mean, if you didn't watch the game and you saw, Chilwell's got another 9-10 pointer, Reece James has got another 12 pointer, you go, they're essential. But watching the game and seeing the disallowed stuff was even more apparent that you just need them in your team.
Yep.
But yeah, so Antonio there next to Chilwell, and what is that, like 3 shots on target and 1 goal from them is just ridiculous, and it puts me off him even more to think that the amount of shots blocked, the amount of shots off target, it just strikes me as someone who's not feeling it at the moment. And we're trying to accumulate all of this information to make FPL decisions about our team. But yeah, I'm really tempted towards selling Antonio. I really, really am. And I'm not sure whether that will bite me in the arse going forwards. But yeah, the more and more I look at it, I'm like, that's probably the move I'm going to make. But then you've got Bowen, like further on, really shooting. Yeah, 100%. Like 4 more shots than Antonio, lots of shots on target, a bigger conversion rate. He could definitely be an alternative. So what are your thoughts on Bowen, or even Fornals for that matter, the rest of that West Ham team?
Look, that's a great question, because One thing I want to say to you is I know you're trying to get Chilwell by moving Antonio down, but have you thought about how to bring Antonio back? And I've thought about that question in my team, and I don't know how I'm gonna get him back really. So I might have to forfeit him in game week 16 and 18. I mean, there's a common narrative of like, okay, maybe Kane to Ronaldo is a bit easier because their price points are similar, but it's hard for me to go from Tony to Antonio unless I make 2 million elsewhere, and I'm very happy with my team right now, right? So that leaves me with Bowen, and I like the look of Bowen. I honestly, if their fixtures were good this week, I might have brought him now because he's actually looking much more threatening than Antonio in many circumstances. So I think Bowman's a great option. And looking at your graph, it's pretty convincing that he's had a lot of shots blocked, not off target, which has got to be a good thing, right?
Yeah, many more shots on target too. So, I mean, it's definitely
Mm,
encouraging for people. He must be really, really low owned as well. So, a massive differential.
mm.
Complete contrast to Antonio, who's still managed to maintain a lot of ownership, even while blanking plenty of times. So, if you feel like you've missed the bus, I don't think it's like that much of a big deal to get off Antonio now. With Man City and Chelsea in the next three. As you say, we have to think about how to bring him back. So for me, I have Raul Jimenez. He's about 7.7, something like that. And after the next two, then maybe I can upgrade Jimenez back to Antonio if I really wanted to. Obviously, I lose a little bit of team value, but it's not the end of the world. And if Antonio continues to struggle, then I don't need to rush to bring him back in. So definitely something to concentrate on. Another player I want to talk about on here is Trossard, and he is definitely a player that flies under the radar most of the time. But he's the second most shots in the entire league, and 21, and Salah's got 23. Plenty of shots on target. Obviously, his conversion isn't that great when you compare it to Salah's. But Brighton don't have like particularly bad fixtures, and he might play or might continue to play in this sort of false nine role where Maupay used to occupy. What do you make of Trossard? Is he someone that you could consider?
I don't think so because I think his like you said, conversion rate's not good enough. But you know, he's a good player. He's obviously a great player, but when you actually look into Brighton's fixtures, the next six especially, it's not too convincing. They have West Ham, Tottenham, United in 6 game weeks, so they might be a little different. Wolves are looking good. Leeds, Southampton, maybe there's an opportunity here, but maybe I see 2 or 3 decent fixtures in the next six. So when it comes to players like this, you really kind of have to attack the fixtures, and I don't think his fixtures are good enough to warrant him in your team.
That's completely fine. Let's not dwell too much more on Trossard. Although I was kind of impressed that he's having loads of shots, but no, that's completely fair enough. And I think our midfields are pretty full of the likes of Foden and Jota and Son and Gallagher's and all these sorts of players. There's no reason to get off them, I think. So moving to the likes of Trossard seems a little bit counterintuitive, but he's certainly doing himself justice in the stats department. So let's give him a little bit of credit there.
For sure.
So the players that shoot further out, who are shooting often, I mean, Adam Armstrong has always been in this position on this shot map all the way through the season. And for owners, I think you obviously can be encouraged by the amount that he's been shooting. But the amount of shots on target are pretty low, and that conversion rate is poor. So it's one of those things that if there was another option to go to, I would think about moving Adam Armstrong on. What about, we've been through Saints fixtures earlier, but I couldn't remember whether they were that good. I think they were sort of middling, right? So it's one of those. You could move to Benteke if you really wanted to. I'm not sure how legitimate I feel about recommending Benteke as an option, but it's worrying that Adam Armstrong is shooting from pretty far out. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Look, they have Liverpool next, so just wait one more week and then maybe assess. But I wouldn't go there.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we've got Kane there we talked about. We've done Spurs to death today. I mean, Dan James, I'm not sure many people are going to be bringing him in. I mean, Rafinha seems like the go-to option at at Leeds. I think that's not one to think about. And Rafinha's obviously on this chart as well, having even missed a game. So you can see that how far out he's been shooting. And you could argue that Rafinha's goals this season a few of them have been a little bit tad fortunate, especially crosses that tend to have sort of been from outside the box and have gone through, ending in the back of the net. But I'm just so amazed that Chilwell and Cancelo are on this chart. It's just completely unheard of. So, I mean, I think we've done stats to death. So let's look to end the video soon by looking at our bus teams for game week 13. And after all that we've discussed, whether any of that might influence our transfer plans. So let's start with you, Andy. We've got a 4-3-3 formation with that magic back four. Talk us through it.
Yeah, again, very temporary. A lot can happen this week, especially with Champions League fixtures. Very happy to own Huang. If I'm a Jimenez owner, I'm ecstatic because Jimenez is looking great. He's in the middle and got 2 great fixtures. Huang's playing super wide now and doing a lot of defensive coverage. So, he's not playing that classic Lage 2-top role right now. But regardless, I'm going to start him because it's just the fixtures are good and Wolves are right up there. I think 6th or 7th or top 5 in the league right now. So they're looking good. Ramsdale in goal for me. Back 4, the Avengers. Salah captain, no doubt about it. On the captaincy real quick, like if you're in a good position, especially maybe let's say 200K and in, there's just no reason to go elsewhere, right? It's just such a high risk to play against that EO. So I like Salah as a captain. Plus, he just looks great right now. So
I completely agree with you. I honestly, personally, really love that Salah is perma-captained by everyone. That green arrow that he might give us as captain is much smaller. But what it does is facilitate the rest of the team to be... I can support the rest of my team every single week, and that's absolutely joyous as an FPL owner. The amount of times where effective ownership means I can't support any of my team just makes FPL less fun for me. So.
Yeah, Ted, exactly. I'm going to echo that because I remember, hearing this in a pod somewhere where this was a top Hall of Fame manager saying how if he could change one thing in FPL, it would be to get rid of captaincy. And I see the logic there, right? Because captaincy makes it fun, right? You can obviously haul with your differential, but it also limits you from structuring your team and playing a little more aggressive here and there. And what this perma captaincy does to us is it allows us to really kind of attack the points with the team around us, which puts more emphasis on making sure you have a strong starting 11 and a pretty decent bench coming off as well. So I like this perma captaincy actually right now. So yeah, and then Jota Foden in the middle. Worried about both of them. I think both of them are injury right now, so we'll see how that works out. And then Kane.
I don't know about. Sorry to interrupt you. I think the Foden one. Yes, he had a knock pre-game. There was talk in the presser, but I'm pretty sure that he was just bought off early because they've got a big Champions League game midweek. And I think Pep just values him as one of these players that he wants to play in, week out. And I think he was just managing that potential knock at the start of the game. So. Fingers crossed for Foden owners that we have nothing to worry about. I think he'll play midweek and he'll play at the weekend against West Ham as well. So yeah, sorry, go on. So
last comment is, by the way, Foden's only 21. We have to remember he's a young lad. So I'm sure he's willing to play every game. My question to you is, I have 2 free transfers and I don't know what to do. I missed out again on the Gallagher move because I should have just done it on Saturday and Mbumo to Gallagher, right on the money. But now I'm 0.1 short, which means I have to downgrade elsewhere. I really don't know where to downgrade. I mean, maybe I could get rid of the Brentford boys and do something wild here, but
so how much is Huang in your team?
I could get rid of Huang. Yeah,
he's 5.8, something like that.
Yeah, I bought him for 5.5, so at his initial price.
Okay, so you can sell him for 5.6. Well, I wonder whether you can downgrade Mbumo and upgrade Huang to someone. maybe Jimenez, if you like Jimenez. It might be a bit of a sideways move, but if you really think that Jimenez is the better option in that Wolves team against a really couple of tasty fixtures, Norwich and Burnley, then maybe that's the move. Although I don't really like bringing in a player that is going to play for just 2 games in your side and you're going to have to move him out again. So maybe those are your 2 make weights. Otherwise, it would be like Brownhill to some boring 4.5 player who's he's probably a little bit more attacking, but such a really boring transfer because he's just going to be third on your bench every week anyway. Yeah. But I mean, I really like your side. I think a lot of people will be moving towards your team, to be honest. I think Son owners might be going, right, I made the wrong decision there. Maybe Kane is the better option. And moving towards that back 4 as well. I think you're really not fortunate, really in a good place to have 2 free transfers and not to know what to do with them. I think it's really
I don't know what to do. I honestly think I'm going to burn it. Yeah.
Oh my God, no,
Crazy,
don't do it.
I know, I don't know what to do. Because how can you get rid of Hwang before Norwich? Like,
can you do Mbeumo down to, I don't know.
I like it. I love that idea. And I was thinking about doing that to Jimenez, but I don't think I have enough money. Because 0.4 Mbeumo to the lowest.
Is that 4.4 million is the lowest?
No, but the issue with that is I would have Brownhill plus another bench fodder. Yeah.
But you'd have an awesome team. Awesome
Don't do this
starting
to me, Ted. I'll consider it. Yeah.
Love it. I mean, I'm jealous of that side. I feel like my side is like the rung below your team. Let's finish off by looking at my side. Last one before we end. So I want to bring in Chilwell. I think he's just so dangerous. I think you were spot on earlier when you said that you felt unlucky that you didn't get more from Chilwell, and he could have easily had way more and world record defender score. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised. So I want Chilwell. I don't know who to sacrifice. It would probably be Antonio maybe for the next 3 games. Could be a massive mistake, but I just feel so unenamored by Antonio's stats, and the eye test doesn't even back that up either. He's popping up on the wing, and he's just an annoying own, I think. So my moves will probably be Ben White up to Ben Chilwell, and Antonio down to, I don't know, either a fodder like Dennis at Watford or Josh King, who's slightly more expensive. And probably more of a legitimate option. And that leaves me some money in the bank to consider going forwards. But I think Salah captain is pretty obvious. I think most people will do that. I'm pretty happy to own Jimenez for Norwich. But yeah, it's crazy that Wolves are like 5th or 6th in the table. Yeah. And they haven't really been that prolific scoring goals. So, I mean, credit to Bruno Lage. Under the radar.
To Bruno Lage. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Okay, we'll leave it there, bud. Thank you so much for joining me, and I think we've had a great discussion about stats. I feel super informed now that we've managed to digest all of that information. But yeah, hopefully all at you at home who've been watching have got something out of that. Thank you for joining us in the chat, and I will catch you soon, Andy, and best of luck for Game Week 13.
Likewise, enjoyed it, Ted.
Wonderful. We'll have you back at some point, and if I don't speak to you for the next few weeks, hopefully you have plenty of green arrows.
Thank you.